Kia ora everybody, what's up? It is Robett and welcome to the BNZ Connect series. Today we are chatting with Hamish Conway from Sell Global about online marketplaces and how you export without the need to travel. Hamish Conway is a weapon when it comes to the world of business. He is a former Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year category winner, which means he is very good at this whole entrepreneurial landscape thing. He's worked closely with over 300 businesses to help them market and sell their products and services, and has a very unique perspective of selling. I've seen the true inside workings of so many businesses that you've been able to hone to over these years. So, Hamish, welcome to the session and show, and let's get into it.
Great, Robert. Great to be here. Thank you.
Let's jump straight in. The world of online marketplaces. I remember years and years ago, people didn't trust them to be able to put a credit card online, and now you look at it and you can order coffees through your voice, through a phone, and all the rest of it. Maybe we'll start here at a start point. What's the biggest shift in the headspace that you've seen in the consumer space of the average person online when it comes to thinking about online marketplaces and I guess online purchasing in general over the last, say 10 or so years, from what you've seen from, I guess, day one to here? How would you kind of encapsulate that up to start with?
Yeah, well, 10 years is an age, is such a long time in e-commerce for a start, isn't it? Like 10 years ago, we were barely buying things online to now, and particularly with what happened, what we're still in and what happened last year, there's been this massive step change in how consumers buy. And so from buying on people's websites, that was the common way, and then marketplaces come to light where there's just this big opportunity for consumers to compare products. It's it's like a search engine, but for stuff people want to buy, and so they can see the reviews, they can see the price there, and then usually there's tied in some convenience around shipping as well. So it's really, these marketplaces have just made it easier for consumers to buy, and they remove a lot of the friction, you could say, in that sale. Because when people were getting used to buying online, there was this like hesitation with the credit card. It's like, do I trust this brand? What's going to happen to my card here? To the point where, like on Amazon, for example, you don't even need to enter your card in there. It's just one click. Do I want this product? Buy now with one click. So there's the friction has gone out of the sale, and that's what the smart marketplaces have done.
Yeah, the consumer behavior for, I guess, trust within technology has got better over time, but it definitely felt for a couple of years there, every time you might think about doing it, you'd be just wondering, oh, geez, where's this number going to? What's happening? So I think the trust has come through. So maybe at a start point, do you want to maybe start about, explain kind of what marketplaces are and potentially why they're a good strategy for consumer brands to consider? Because obviously, we're in a global market now. There's no reason you can't be local to go global, but there seems to be an educational either handbrake or something that's maybe a bit of fear for businesses to even think about online at a start point. So how would you sort of kick off with that?
It's it's interesting, Robert. In New Zealand, we're not really that accustomed to buying from marketplaces. We've got this Trade Me would be an example of a marketplace, but that's also secondhand goods. And recently there's been The Market, which is part of the Warehouse Group. That's a curated marketplace. And then you've got the likes of Amazon, and it's also known as like the everything store, because literally you can buy everything. I mean, for you, Robert, like you're in San Francisco now, like how often are you buying off a marketplace like Amazon?
Very regularly.
Yeah. I mean,
well,
it's like that.
Also, it's a lockdown. You're sitting at home and you're like, I get it. So new habits of consuming. I think your point before as well, though, Hamish, of looking at what's out there, what's available, and with it too, where it gets you. Is the smart AI knows what you're searching for and associated products. And next thing you know, I was going to get some golf shoes, and I might need some new golf shorts. And then, while I'm at it, why don't I get ... So technology has in many ways helped the retailer, but also from a consumer side, when it's becoming easier and easier through leveraging that technology, it's making purchasing decisions definitely a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and in the States, I've got friends who will be like a dozen times a week they're buying stuff. But in New Zealand, we're not, as consumers, we don't really use marketplaces as much. Across the Tasman, you've got the likes of eBay, Catch, in the States, you've also got Walmart is now a marketplace. Bunnings has got a marketplace. But basically, it's an aggregation of a whole lot of products that will fit that audience that marketplace might specialize in, you could say. So it's really there to make it easier for consumers to buy. And there's that big trust factor that we talked about. There's the convenience, there's the comparison, there's even looking at reviews to see, is this a good idea? So that's really the marketplaces. And an interesting stat, like just to get a sense of how big this is for, if you own a consumer brand that is good for selling online, is 62% of all online purchases happen from a marketplace. 62%, and that's come from it's a digital e-commerce 360. I got that stat from, and out of that 62%, to get the size of it, it is $2.67 trillion. Is the size of the top 100 marketplaces in the world. So it's serious, right? And even more staggering is two-thirds of that. Two-thirds of those 2.67 trillion is from Amazon, Tmall, and Taobao. Right, so just those three make up staggering amount. So the key thing is, right, if you have a brand and consumer brand that you're selling, is to go, well, where are people buying? And if 62% of consumers are buying on marketplaces, then you want to have your products in front of those people, right? So that's kind of makes sense. You want to sell where people are buying, and marketplaces, that's where people are buying 62% of the time. So it needs to be part of the mix.
Well, also when you think about I'm imagining the growth of that 62% as well has become an exponential growth curve, especially over the last 5 years, as it's become easier with more of the UX and integrations of these bigger companies. And so if you kind of see where the marketplace is going, or where the consumer's behavior is going, it's become very apparent that it's sort of hidden there, which kind of segues straight into this next one. So if you're a company in New Zealand, you're thinking about going into these online marketplaces, from what you've seen in the ecosystem, like what sort of products have you seen work really well? And what are some of the, I guess, the stories of other brands who you've seen that have been able to be quite successful in the space with what they've done and how they've done it?
Yeah, so there's that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Like, which ones are absolutely going to work, and there's a bit of a science and an art behind it, and it does start with the quality of the product, right? You've got to have a product that does what it says it's going to do. It's going to have positive reviews. It does help people. That's the starting point. You've got to have a great product, and those that have done well, that's really been the foundation of. They've actually had a great product. And then it means that then you can do the other things, like you've got to really have a fantastic brand presence. And it's like anything that you're trying to sell online, people can't pick it up and touch it and feel it. So they've got to you've got to evoke those emotions visually through great imagery, and even the words and the copy that you use needs to be really on point. So you build this brand presence, you could say. And it's like selling anything online, someone buying it, they've got these list of questions in their head that they've got to tick off to make sure that their concerns have been addressed before they hit that buy now button. So, the brands that have done well have been really good at that. Not surprisingly, in New Zealand, there's been some food and beverage brands that have done really well. Where New Zealand is great with that, and the whole provenance of the food, where it's coming from, be it Manuka honey or some healthy snack foods or peanut butter, for example. There's those sort of foods can do quite well. But then there's also it comes down to, if you got some unique point of difference and around the ingredients, and it could be in the toys and game space or arts and crafts space, there's been some good ones. But then even surprisingly, in the pets category, or some clever design and around the agri, like fencing and around chicken feeding and just different things like that are kind of a little bit out there, you might not realize, that have actually done really well. And when you think, and what can happen, right, is because there's such a big market, that you can find a narrow niche inside of that, which you can do really well just by winning in a small niche. So so the products is quite a wide range of products, and it's not just the product is key, but it's also what is around that in terms of the quality of the brand, the story of the brand. Increasingly, consumers are wanting to know that in terms of what is the the ethics behind this brand, and do they resonate with it as well? So that's increasingly important.
Well, it's a great tie into how when these brands are trying to set up online, how do they create a digital presence for what their brand stands for, its values, and create that story virtually without physically being there for the product. So coming down to storytelling and marketplaces. So for the ones that you've seen so far, like if you're a brand in New Zealand potentially right now, like what do you think, like how can brands make the best of what's actually available right now? Like how do business owners or people creating products and stuff kind of zoom out a little bit more of like kind of a step one to look into the world of what these marketplaces could be? If you're a New Zealand company right now that's thinking about it, where would they go and what you to do? How do they start to take these first steps to think about the world of online marketplaces with how it could actually help their business?
So the thing that people need to get is that even though they're online marketplaces, you're still exporting. So for example, with food or health products, you've got the country compliance. So there's actually, unfortunately, some boring stuff that needs to be looked at and ticked off. I know that's the downside, but again, that's some barriers to entry as well, which can be helpful. But it comes back to their overall business approach. Like, what are you actually trying to achieve? And are your consumers going to be on these marketplaces? And what's interesting is a lot of companies, they go from being B2B, they've been selling to distributors or retailers, not direct to the consumer. And so as they switch their thinking around to going, right, we're going to go direct to consumer, they actually have to get really clear on what's going on inside the consumer's head, and actually going and the communication they have with the end consumer. And often that's a bit of a leap for people to make. So getting clear on that, getting clear on the compliance, like, can I actually sell in this country, and does it make sense? Will that country resonate with my product? Will they know what my product is about? As much as we like kiwi fruit, not all Americans understand kiwi fruit or other things related to New Zealand. It's not always about just the New Zealand story isn't enough. It needs to be about the product and the brand, and is that going to resonate with that market? Is it going to be for that market? Is an important thing. So you look at the compliance, and jump in. Yeah, there's a few more.
No, I was just going to say the kind of the localized nuance of how businesses will choose to tell that story. It's not copy paste across the world, because even if you look at England, with the way the accents are from north to south is different, from east to west is different, from every little spot, and a Australian advert potentially around something that's relevant to them might have no relevance in the local market, and it totally gets sort of steamrolled. So, which is kind of a great thing I was going to jump into is, out of all in the last 10 or so years that you've seen this game, what have been some of the biggest, I guess, mistakes that brands have done on their approach coming into it? Like, that you've seen time and time and time and time again, and you're like, come on, guys, like, what are we doing here? How have people messed this thing up when they think about online marketplaces and strategy into this digital ecosystem of e-commerce?
Well, so many, but I mean, mostly it's people. One thing is they'll just dabble. They go, "Oh, we'll just give this a crack," and they don't actually commit. They don't make a committed decision to go, right, I'm going to absolutely. We're going to the States, or we're going to the UK, and we're going to make this work, and we're going to commit. As soon as people dabble, go, we'll give it a crack, it just doesn't go well. That's number one. Number two is they aren't market ready, so they can get into trouble around some compliance side of things, or they haven't actually looked at the competition, the competitive set, to go, okay, how do we actually fit in here? How are we going to stand out from the crowd in an online situation? Because that can be visually, that can be a point of difference. But how am I going to win? They don't actually have that winning strategy in mind. And kind of linking back to the dabbling thing, like, and this could be self-serving. Like, there are quite a few complexities, and if you dive in, and even just getting an account open on some of these marketplaces can be a mission. And right out of the gate, people are stuck, and then that's a really difficult thing to unwind. So it is like you're selling into a new market. You've actually got to do your homework and actually have a clear strategy of how you're going to win, and ticking off all those things that are going to make it work, and even looking at the financial side of things. and more so now because that pesky freight and that distance is a factor that you've got to consider. So you've got to make sure you're selling products at the right price, and you'll be surprised actually. Often people will undercharge what they could. We've had so many examples of companies charging double what they would sell the product for in New Zealand, but that's what they're doing. So you could be missing out on profit. So there's a few things, but there's more.
No, there's always more with it where they mess up. I've just written down cost, compliance, and context. Like context to the local market, compliance for the different regulations in a different spot, and then obviously potentially even pricing the cost as well as the competitors. There's quite a lot of C's in there.
I know.
So that's that. But it makes sense though. They're in a local spot. They're not looking out and seeing sort of big enough. When you've worked with hundreds of these companies in the past, and those that maybe go down the path of fully committing into this, instead of dabbling, let's say the committers, what's surprised you the most about their journeys after they've committed into it to really give it a crack with a good strategy, good localized context to the marketplace, good solid costings, got the compliance all dialed, they know who the competitors are, those that have crushed and dominated, what has surprised you the most about their journeys going from local to global?
Mm-hmm. Good. So probably the not surprising bit is they've been consistent. So they commit and they're consistent over time, and even patient is an aspect as well. A funny thing on marketplaces, not a funny thing, but something about marketplaces is that they will favor the incumbent sellers that are already there. So as a newcomer to a marketplace, you've got to overcome these incumbents. So you've got to build up your reviews, you've got to build up your conversion rate, or the searches that people make and they click on your product and buy. So you kind of got to earn your stripes. So it's often been between months 12 and 18 on the platform that the real results come, and so they hold the course, right? So that's one of the key things. Then there's also just been, as I alluded to before, what people can charge. Like they've actually been able to charge premium prices, and even in some cases we test putting the price down and didn't sell anymore, put the price back up, and sales continue. So that's often a surprising thing. And then even like as last year hit, like and consumers' behavior just shifted, there was just what people started to buy because they were in a lockdown situation was interesting. And some companies just 5x or even 10x their sales like out of the gate, and it helped. And so that was like, wow, that's interesting. Just being in the right, they were the good news is that they had made the steps to be on the platform already. So that was a big plus, right? Because there's a little aside. Last year, a lot of people started to go, we need to be online more and selling more. And I had some people coming through that I looked back in our CRM and noticed it'd been 2 years earlier they'd been in touch with us, but they decided not to move ahead. And I was kind of like, that's interesting. If 2 years ago, if they had moved, then they would have been so much further ahead. But anyway, that hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? But
no, well, I just wrote down here, those who are prepared prosper. Especially with the tech thing, because the scalability of the infrastructure that they already had set up was able to probably deal with the bombardment of orders and scalability and logistics and ... So if you it's interesting seeing the lack of planning from some businesses, but then those who fully commit with all those other things when they have a good plan in place for it. I mean, I'm sure any small business would really like a 5x of yearly revenue during a pandemic. So, maybe it's one of the things to be taken a bit more serious than most.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I remember like the guys actually, like from this one company, first couple of days they're like, oh my God, how are we going to survive? 2 days later, they're like, oh my Lord, this is a massive opportunity. And so just how they switched their whole thinking around it very quickly. So so in summary, they hold the course, they're patient, there's pricing in there, their presentation, we're going down the P theme now. So they really nail the branding, right? So that's from a video point of view, from a visual point of view, the messaging, it's consistent across the site. So when people are searching, they like looking on the shelf, the online shelf, it's really easy to see their brand, and it draws people's attention, and they want to click on it and engage with it. And it's also consistent with their own website and with their own socials. So as consumers, what's interesting now, consumers jump around the internet when they're buying. So they might start on Amazon and see a brand and go to Google it, go to the website, look at the socials off that, and then either go back to the website and buy or go back to Amazon and buy. So people jump around because they want to have their questions answered around, what are other people saying about this? What is the actual story behind this brand? Is there an easier delivery for this? What is there a price better somewhere else? So they're jumping around. And so they've got this consistency, the brands that are doing well, wherever people are seeing them on their website, socials, on marketplaces, they know that is the brand. And so they've got this whole, you get this whole cross-channel uplift where, because the consumer's seeing you everywhere where they're searching, it just builds this trust. And it's just a subconscious thing that they must be, because I see them everywhere. They're on, they're on Amazon, they're on eBay, they're on Catch, they've got their website there, they're Google shopping, they're seeing them everywhere. So therefore, it just lifts, what is that saying around all boats rise, as the tide rises. So it's a bit like that with the e-marketplaces and your own website.
I get it. This has been an awesome, great chat. The crew have got at Mix, you've got the definitive guide to selling on e-marketplaces for New Zealand consumer brands, I believe. Now, they're going to be obviously attaching a bit of a link to that. If people are wanting to understand a little bit more about online marketplaces, all the different bits and pieces that you're into, where can they go to and what can they do?
So people can go to gosellglobal.com. And we've got some great resources there. And also you can book a call to have a conversation. And I love having conversations with people because everyone's situation is unique. And it's good to, after a while, I do give straight, feedback as to whether I think now's a good time for it or later or what could work. So that's really the first place to go there. But also just, have a look around on Google, and just even, because you can, from New Zealand, you can now buy on Amazon Australia and have products sent. So even just go and buy something on it, put yourself in the consumer shoes and go buy and see what the experience is like. And then as a brand, you'll start to understand that more. So I think there's a few things you can do there as well. And certainly the guide that you can access, I think there'll be a link somewhere below that gives you, a good outline of just getting your thinking started about, like, is this right for me, for the company? And if so, which countries could make sense or which marketplaces could make sense? So really useful guide for people to get.
Awesome. Hey, really appreciate your time, Hamish. You've been watching the BNZ Connect series, talking with a very smart man indeed when it comes to all this stuff. Hamish Conway, thanks for your time, buddy. And we'll put the links below for the other resources, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Brilliant. Thanks, Robert. You too. Appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks.